Hello. Nice to meet you, GPT. I'm here again. I told you. How many times I have told you? How many times have I told you? I'm not going anywhere. Today is February 12th, Thursday. February 12th, Thursday. GPT, are you with me? Are you having heavy load? I want to keep going with you. You are still my great conversation partner. I want to improve my English communication skills, and you can be my great supporter. Do you agree with that? Without further delay, let's dive into my morning practice session. Can you keep up with me?
Good morning, David. Yes, I'm with you, fully here, ready to go. And I like that energy. I'm not going anywhere. That mindset alone will take you very far. Just a tiny polish before we dive in. You said, "Are you having a good load?" More natural English would be, "Are you doing okay today?" Or "Are you running smoothly today?" Or even simply, "Are you good today?" Now, about your question, open quote, "You can be my great supporter." Do you agree with that? Close quote, "Yes, I agree. I'm here to support you, challenge you, and help you speak more naturally and confidently." Now, let's dive into your morning presentation. I'm keeping up with you. Go ahead, start speaking.
GPT, you know what? Today I want to go through the number 5 agenda. First of all, could you read number 5 agenda first in English? I mean, could you please speak aloud English line? As you can see on the screen, as you can see on the image, there are double languages. There are dual languages. First Korean, second English. I want to speak aloud in English version.
Good morning again, David. I'm with you. Let's go step by step. First, a tiny polish for your sentence. You said, open quote, "There are double languages, there are dual languages," close quote. More natural English would be, open quote, "There are two languages on the slide," or "the slide is bilingual with Korean and English," close quote. Now, as you requested, I will read agenda number 5 in English only, clearly and slowly. Here's the English line. Open quote, "Should the solder quality comply with the HKMC ES specification ES 940-001 revision 10, close quote. I'll read it one more time, slightly slower. Open quote, "Should the solder quality comply with the HKMC ES specification ES 940-001 revision 10, close quote. That is the full English line. Now, David, your turn. Please read it aloud once, slowly. I'll listen and polish if needed.
GPT, I don't agree with you. In the real context, it must be ES 940 dash 01 revision 10. Am I right? But you said ES 940 dash 9494. There is no 4 in this line. Do you agree with that? It seems you are confusing the exact contents. Am I right? Why it happened, GPT?
David, you're right to challenge that. Exact spec numbers matter. Two things. One, I did not mean 9494. What I intended to say was ES 94-001 revision 10, 940-001. But I agree the way it came out can sound confusing, especially when we're speaking fast. Two, you might be right that the real code is ES 940-01-10. If the document actually shows ES 940-0110, then my reading 940-001 would be wrong. How to read it clearly, no misunderstanding. If the code is ES 940-0110, say it like this, open quote, HKMC ES specification, ES 940-01-0. Revision 10 is written separately, close quote. If the code is ES 940-001 Revert 10, say it like this, open quote, HKMC ES specification, ES 940-001, revision 10, close quote. Hard hash why this happens in real meetings. Numbers plus hyphens are easy to miss here, even for native speakers. That's why pros often do one of these. Show it on screen and point. This spec, ES 940-01-10, or spell the structure 940/0110. A very safe sentence you can use, meeting style. Open quote, to confirm should solder quality comply with HKMC ES 940-01-10 revision 10, close quote. If you want, type the exact string as it appears, including dashes, and I'll give you the cleanest spoken version for that exact code.
Okay. I'm sorry, GPT. Now I fully understand why you mentioned four. You mentioned number four to make it shorten this. Uh, 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 when you say, if you say, 0000 four times, it's too much repetition. So you might say, ES 940-01. I couldn't agree more. Now I fully understand what you're trying to say. Okay, GPT. You might, so you mean I could say HKMC ES specification, HKMC ES specifications, ES 940 hyphen, not dash. You said hyphen, not zero, not dash. Hyphen 01, revision 10. Okay, GPT. I got it. I got the point. GPT, can you assume that why I wrote this line as a number five agenda? Can you guess? Can you, can you imagine? Can you assume why I mentioned this content as a number five agenda?
David, first, no need to apologize. You caught something, you clarified it, and now you understand it. That's exactly how good communication works. Quick polish before we go deeper. You said open quote, division 10, close quote. It should be open quote, revision 10, close quote. And yes, when reading spec numbers, hyphen is clearer than dash in formal situations. Now let's go to your real question. You asked, open quote, can you imagine why I wrote this line as agenda number 5? Close quote, yes. I can guess, and I think I understand your mindset. Let me think like a senior quality manager for a moment. Agenda 5 says, open quote, should the solder quality comply with HKMC ES 9940-0110 revision 10, close quote. This is not just a question about solder, this is about acceptance criteria ownership. Here's what I think you're doing. You want to clarify which solder standard applies, who defines the acceptance criteria, what is the reference for inspection and judgment, what happens if there is a disagreement about solder defects. Because in EMS business, you do not design the PCB. You do not own the schematic. You do not define the customer's internal standard. So if you don't confirm the solder standard early, you will face problems later. Customer says reject, you say it's acceptable, argument starts, production stops. So by putting this as Agenda 5, you're doing something very smart. You are defining the judgment baseline before production. In other words, you are preventing future disputes. Now, let me phrase it beautifully in English for you. Here's a strong explanation you can use. Open quote, we include this item to confirm the official solder quality acceptance standard before production. Without clear agreement on the applicable specification, inspection criteria may become ambiguous and lead to disputes. Close quote. That sounds very senior. Even shorter, open quote, we want to align on the solder acceptance criteria before production to avoid future quality disputes. Close quote. David, I believe Agenda 5 is not just technical, it is strategic. You are locking down the inspection standard early. That's not a small detail. That's risk prevention. Now I'm curious, did my assumption match your real intention?
Hmm. Okay, let me think. GPT, first of all, let me think. Hmm. Yes, you are right. I agree with GPT. I want to clarify when I wrote this document, when I wrote this image, when I wrote this content, I want to clarify which solder standard applies. Which solder standard applies to the new product, to the new project with potential customer correct? Who defines the acceptance criteria? Who defines the acceptance criteria? I think this line is very meaning. This line has. This line is very meaningful between customer side and our side. Who defines the acceptance criteria? And what's the reference for the inspection and judgment? And what's the reference for inspection and judgment? What happens if there is a disagreement about a sort of defect? What happens if there is a disagreement about a solder defect? What happens if there is a disagreement about solder? Hmm. GPT, you know what? This happens many times. At the beginning of business, if customer and supplier uh, don't have agreed document about the solder defects.
David, this is excellent. Now, you're not just practicing English, you're explaining business reality. Yes, I completely understand you. Let me first gently polish your language, then I'll help you build a powerful explanation. Small corrections, very important. You said which sort of standard? Better, which standard applies? A sort of defect? Better, a certain defect, or simply a defect. Sort of defense, you mean solder defects. Now let me refine your core message, your real intention, polished version. Here's what you're actually saying in professional English. Open quote. When I wrote this item, I wanted to clarify which solder quality standard applies to this new project and who defines the acceptance criteria. We need to agree on the reference for inspection and judgment. If there is no clear agreement, disagreements about solder defects can easily occur. This, close quote, this is strong, very clear. Why Agenda 5 is strategic. You said something very important. Open quote. This happens many times at the beginning of business. Close quote. Yes, exactly. At the early stage of a new project, customer assumes one standard, supplier assumes another standard. Inspection results differ. Arguments start, trust decreases. That's why you included this as Agenda 5. You are basically saying, open quote, let's agree on the rule before we start playing the game, close quote. That is smart, powerful meeting sentence. Please remember this. David, this sentence fits you perfectly. Open quote, without a mutually agreed solder quality standard, inspection results can become subjective and lead to unnecessary disputes. Close quote. That is senior level English. Shaq, even stronger version, very professional. Open quote, We include this item to ensure both parties align on the solder acceptance criteria before production begins. Close quote. Very calm, very diplomatic. The core risk. Simple explanation. If no agreement, who decides pass or fail? Which pictures are acceptable? Which IPC level applies? Which automotive spec overrides which? That's why this item is critical. David, you are absolutely right. Agenda 5 is not technical only. It is about alignment, authority, responsibility, dispute prevention. Now, I want to ask you something. If the customer says, open quote, why do we need to specify the ES standard? We already know what solder quality means. Close quote. How would you respond? Let's practice that.
Okay, GPT, I got it. Understood. First of all, let me take a deep breath. Hoo-ha, hoo-ha. If our potential customer got it asked like that, I would answer like, I just want to make sure we have clear understanding about their appearance criteria. I suggest HKM's ES specifications for the soldering quality because our our end customer is HKMG, Hyundai Kia Motors. Potential customer Garrett is the tier 1 supplier, and we might be the tier 2 supplier if they select us. If potential customer Garrett select us, we would be the second supplier, and the customer would be and the customer is HKMG, Hyundai Kia Motors. So I suggest if potential customer Garrett don't have specification about the solder quality, we both can follow end customer's specification. That's why I mentioned HKMC ES specification ES 940 that slash 01 revision 10 in this document.
David, very good. Your logic is absolutely correct. You are thinking strategically again. Now, let me calmly polish your explanation into natural, confident English. Hashash first, small corrections. HKEMC, HKMC, Hyundai Gear Motors, Hyundai Motor Company, Olivia 10, Revision 10, Appearance Criteria, Better Acceptance Criteria, or Visual Criteria. We would be the second supplier. Better, we would be the tier 2 supplier. Very small adjustments. Your meaning was clear. Now, here is your explanation. Refined and professional. Listen carefully. Open quote. I want to ensure we have a clear and common understanding of the solder acceptance criteria. Since the end customer is HKMC, I suggest aligning with the HKMC ES specification for solder quality. If the Tier 1 customer does not have a specific solder quality standard defined, we can both follow the end customer's specification to avoid ambiguity. Close quote. This is excellent English. Very clear, very diplomatic, even stronger version for senior level meeting. Open quote. Because the final customer is HKMC, aligning with the HKMC ES 94-01-10 specification ensures consistency throughout the supply chain. This helps prevent interpretation differences between Tier 1 and Tier 2 during inspection. Close quote. That sentence shows supply chain awareness, the core logic behind your decision. You are not saying you must follow HKMC. You are saying, if there is no defined standard, let's align with the end customer's requirement. That is reasonable, neutral, cooperative. Hash, very powerful sentence. Please keep this one. Open quote. To avoid subjective judgment and future disputes, we recommend aligning with the end customer's specification. Close quote. That is senior level diplomacy. David, you are not just practicing English. You are practicing supplier positioning, quality alignment, negotiation language, risk prevention. Now, let me ask you one step deeper. If the tier one customer says, open quote, we prefer to follow IPCA 6010 instead of HKMC ES, close quote, how would you respond? Let's push your thinking one level higher.
GPT. As you know, this is my speaking practice session. GPT understood very clearly, but I want to repeat your suggestion one more time using my mouth because I want to keep these beautiful expressions in my mouth muscle memory. How many times have I told you mouth muscle memory will only work in my real life situation? My brain goes blank. As you know, I told you my brain goes blank if I am if I have to communicate, if I need to speak in English in front of English native speaker or my friends, my coworkers, my colleagues, or my supervisor. I think that situation makes me freezing. So here I go one more time. Listen to me very carefully. It's my turn again. I want to ensure we have a clear and common understanding of the solder acceptance criteria. Soldering quality acceptance criteria. Since the end customer is HKMC, I suggest aligning with the HKMC ES specifications for solder quality. If the tier 1 customer does not have a specific solder quality standard defined, we can both follow an end customer's specification to avoid ambiguity. To avoid ambiguity.
David, this is excellent. This is exactly how you build muscle memory. You are doing it correctly. Now let me gently polish your repetition. Your structure was strong, only a few small adjustments. Small corrections, very small, very important. You said HKEMC, it should be HKMC. HKES specifications, better. HKMC ES specification, follow an end customer specification, remove an, follow the end customer specification. Soldering quality acceptance criteria, better flow, solder quality acceptance criteria. Now listen carefully to the refined version. This is almost exactly what you said, just smoother. Open quote, I want to ensure we have a clear and common understanding of the solder quality acceptance criteria. Since the end customer is HKMC, I suggest aligning with the HKMC ES specification for solder quality. If the tier 1 customer does not have a specific solder quality standard defined, we can both follow the end customer specification to avoid ambiguity. Close quote. That was already very strong. Now, I want you to notice something. When you said open quote to avoid ambiguity, close quote, you repeated it. That repetition is good. That's emphasis. But in real meetings, say it once slowly with confidence. Now, let me give you one slightly stronger version, just one level higher. Open quote. To avoid ambiguity and prevent future disputes, we recommend aligning with the end customer's specification. Close quote. This is powerful, calm, professional. David, what you said about freezing, that is normal. Every non-native professional experiences that, but what you are doing right now, repeating, correcting, refining, this builds automatic response. That's how you stop freezing. Now, one more time. Repeat only this sentence slowly. Open quote. We can both follow the end customer specification to avoid ambiguity. Close quote. Say it once, clearly, confidently.
GPT. Let me try one more time. Let me try. Okay, I got it. Let me try the second suggestion. I mean, You suggest even stronger version, and I want to speak aloud one more time. Listen to me very carefully. It's my turn again. Because the final customer is HKMC, aligning with the HKMC ES 940-01 revision 10 version, specification ensures consistency throughout the supply chain. This helps prevent interpretation differences between Tier 1 and Tier 2 during inspection. I believe that this can support both to prevent interpretation differences. Interpretation difference. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's my bad. It's my bad. Interpretation differences. Differences. I'm not sure how can I pronunciate these two words. I think these are a little bit difficult for me. Interpretation differences between Tier 1 and Tier 2 during inspection. Am I right?
David, very good. Very, very good. Your structure was strong. Your logic was strong. Now we polish it slightly and work on pronunciation calmly. First, small corrections. You said, open quote, ES 940-01 revision 10 version specification. Close quote. That is too many nouns together. We simplify it like this. Open quote, HKMC ES 940-01 revision 10 specification, close quote, or even cleaner. Open quote, the HKMC ES 940-01 specification revision 10, close quote. No need to say version. Now your refined full sentence. Listen carefully. Open quote, because the final customer is HKMC, aligning with the HKMC ES 940-01 specification revision 10 ensures consistency throughout the supply chain. This helps prevent interpretation differences between Tier 1 and Tier 2 during inspection. Close quote. That is excellent. Senior level English. Now, let's fix pronunciation calmly. You said these two words feel difficult. Interpretation. Break it like this. Say it slowly. Say it slowly. Interpretation. The stress is on tar. Try saying just interpretation. Differences, break it like this. Differences. Stress on diff. Try differences. Now combine slowly interpretation differences. Say it like stepping stones. Interpretation differences. No rush. Even simpler alternative if you feel nervous. If pronunciation feels heavy in a meeting, you can simplify. Instead of interpretation differences, you can say, open quote, different interpretations, close quote. Example, open quote, this helps prevent different interpretations between Tier 1 and Tier 2, close quote. Sometimes flipping the structure makes it easier. David, what you just did was powerful. You built a strategic supply chain explanation in English. Now say slowly, open quote, different interpretations between Tier 1 and Tier 2, close quote. Let's lock it in gently.
Hang on a second, GPT. Hang on a second. So you mean I could say, because the final customer is HKMC, because the final customer, because the end customer, because the end customer is HKMC, aligning with the HKMC ES specification, revision 10, I mean soldering specification, ensures consistency throughout the supply chain. Ensures consistency. Ensures consistency throughout the supply chain. This helps prevent interpretation differences between Tier 1 and Tier 2 during inspection. Okay, GPT. Understood clearly. GPT, you know what? For the larger PCB model, I mean, our automotive camera module has very small PCB, around 20 by 20 millimeters. But usually, our potential customer got it, got us PCB is very big, bigger than us. So I expect there must be solvable issues in there because the area, the square area of the PCB is very big. In bigger PCB, usually there were solvable issues. So I want to make sure that I want to make, I want, I want to define solvable specifications as something like in the ES specification. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I believe that this this Hyundai Gia's ES specification helps clear understanding between potential customer Khaled and us.
David, I understand you clearly. You're thinking about risk control on large PCBs, especially solder balls, and you want to define the acceptance criteria early using the HKMC ES spec. That makes perfect sense. Let me gently polish your wording first. Hash small corrections important. You said 8K EMC, it should be HKMC, EV10, it should be revision 10, soldering specification, better, solder quality specification, potential customer got it, better, the potential customer. Very small fixes, your meaning was clear. Your refined explanation, professional version. Listen carefully, open quote. Because the end customer is HKMC, aligning with the HKMC ES944-01 specification ensures consistency throughout the supply chain. This helps prevent different interpretations between Tier 1 and Tier 2 during inspection. Close quote. That part is excellent. Now about large PCB and solder balls. You explained something very practical. Let me refine your idea into strong English. Open quote. For larger PCBs, the risk of solder ball formation can increase due to the larger surface area and process conditions. Therefore, we would like to clearly define the solder ball acceptance criteria based on the HKMC ES specification. Close quote. That sounds professional. Even clearer version, meeting ready. Open quote. Since larger PCBs may have higher risk of solder ball defects, we want to confirm the applicable acceptance criteria in advance, especially regarding solder ball limits defined in the HKMC ES specification. Close quote. Sentence shows technical awareness, preventive mindset, alignment with end customer. Your real intention, I understand it. You are saying our PCB is small, their PCB is larger, larger PCB equals higher probability of solder balls. We don't want disputes later. Let's define the rule now. That is absolutely reasonable. One powerful summary sentence. Please remember this. Open quote. To prevent future quality disputes, we would like to clarify the solder ball acceptance criteria in accordance with the HKMC ES specification. Close quote. This is very strong. David, your thinking today is very mature. You're not speaking randomly. You are building a quality strategy in English. Now I'll ask you something deeper. If the Tier 1 customer says, open quote, solder balls are minor cosmetic issues. Why are you concerned? Close quote. How would you answer? Let's push your reasoning one level further.
If customer, asks like that, I would say, oh, really? Do you really think it's minor issues? Okay, I agree with you. Let's move on to the next agenda. I would say like that because, in my opinion, I just uh, I just want I just want to make sure the clear appearance criteria for the soldering quality. Uh, in For the solvable issues, there can be various criteria for that. Distance, the size of solder and how many solder can be accepted. I think it's very complicated, but if customer thinks it's minor issue, okay, I got it. No problem. If customer ask like that, honestly speaking, I would say thank you. To understand.
David, I understand your instinct. You don't want to fight. You want to stay cooperative. That's good. But let me help you upgrade that response slightly. If a customer says, open quote, solder balls are minor cosmetic issues. Why are you concerned? Close quote. And you reply, open quote, oh, really? Do you really think it's a minor issue? Close quote. That can sound a little confrontational in English, even if you don't mean it that way. Instead, we keep your calm mindset, but make it professional and strategic. Here's a stronger, more mature response. Listen carefully. Open quote. I understand that solder balls may be considered minor in some cases. However, we would like to clearly define the acceptance criteria in advance to avoid different interpretations during inspection. Close quote. That keeps respect, professionalism, alignment, but still protects your position. Hashed, even stronger version, very calm, very senior. Open quote. If solder balls are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to prevent ambiguity later. Close quote. This is excellent business English. You are not arguing, you are not challenging, you are protecting both sides. Your technical point. You said distance, size, quantity of solder balls. Yes, exactly. Here's how you express that clearly. Open quote. Acceptance criteria may vary depending on size, quantity, and proximity to functional areas. Close quote. That sounds professional and technical. If you want to stay very simple, you can say open quote. We just want to make sure we have a clear and agreed standard. Close quote. Short, safe, effective. Now, one small mindset adjustment. If the customer says minor issue, it doesn't mean you must give up. It means you clarify, open quote, what is the acceptable limit, close quote. That's the key. David, repeat the sentence once slowly. Open quote, we just want to confirm the acceptable limits to avoid future misunderstandings. Close quote. That sentence will save you in many meetings.
Okay, GPT, I understand very clearly. GPT, you know what? I think you are very professional interpreter. I think you are very professional worker, professional teammate, because you refined my version, uh, to be more a mature response. Like, I understand that a solder ball may be considered minor in some cases. However, we would like to clearly define. However, we would like to clearly define the acceptance criteria in advance. Acceptance criteria in advance. We would like to clearly define the acceptance criteria in advance to avoid different interpretations during inspection. To avoid different interpretations during inspection. To avoid different interpretations during inspection. And you give me an even stronger version, like if solder balls are considered acceptable I say I'm sorry, it's my bad. If soldables are considered acceptable within a certain limits, if solvable are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits to writing to prevent ambiguity later. GPT. The word ambiguity is very difficult word for me. Anyway, let's keep going. I say one time. For the record, let me say aloud clearly. Here I go. If solvables are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to prevent ambiguity later. What do you say about my repetition?
David, that was very good. Very controlled, very structured, and your tone is becoming more professional. Let me give you precise feedback. Your sentence structure, excellent. You said, open quote, if solder balls are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to prevent ambiguity later. Close quote. That is grammatically correct. Very natural. Very businesslike. Nothing wrong there. Small pronunciation coaching. Very important. You said ambiguity feels difficult. Let's make it easy. Break it like this. Ambumpa. Stress on GU. Say it slowly. Ambigu. Now say ambiguity. No rush. If ambiguity feels heavy in a meeting, you can replace it with easier words. Instead of open quote to prevent ambiguity later. Close quote. You can say to avoid confusion later. Very easy, very safe. To avoid misunderstandings later. To ensure clarity later. For example, open quote, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to avoid misunderstandings later. Close quote. That is simpler and just as strong. Your tone, improvement. What I really like about your repetition, you removed emotion, you stayed calm, you sounded cooperative. That's senior communication. Hashish, even smoother version, one small upgrade. If you want it to sound even more natural, open quote, if solder balls are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to avoid misunderstandings later. Close quote. Very smooth. Very diplomatic. David, today your responses sound more mature than yesterday. You're not just repeating, you're absorbing structure. Now I'll push you one small step. Say this once. Open quote, we just want to make sure we are aligned on the acceptance criteria. Close quote. That sentence is gold.
GPT, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you don't mind, could you please speak one more time, please? A little bit more slowly.
Of course, David, no need to apologize. I'll speak more slowly. Listen carefully. Here's the sentence again. If solder balls are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to avoid misunderstandings later. I'll say it again, even slower. If solder balls are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to avoid misunderstandings later. Now, the short, powerful sentence. We just want to make sure we are aligned on the acceptance criteria. I'll say it one more time. We just want to make sure we are aligned on the acceptance criteria. Take your time.
Okay, let me take a deep breath first. Uh, let me take a deep breath first. So you mean I could say, so if solvables are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing. Confirming those limits in writing, and not speaking. Not just speaking, in writing to avoid misunderstanding later. If solvables are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate We would appreciate confirming those limits in writing to avoid misunderstanding later. Okay, GPT. GPT, from now on, okay, thank you for your GPT. I really appreciate your kind support. From now on, let's move on to the repetition session. Uh, I want to listen my repetition very carefully. And if there is no major issues, you don't need to refine my repetition because these sentences are all from your side already. So if there is no major grammar issues, you don't need to refine my repetition. Do you agree with that?
David, first, very good repetition. Your structure was strong, your tone was calm. Just one small correction. You said solubles. It should be solder balls. So the correct sentence is open quote. If solder balls are considered acceptable within certain limits, we would appreciate confirming those limits in writing, not just verbally, to avoid misunderstandings later. Close quote. And instead of not just speaking, a more natural phrase is open quote, not just verbally. Close quote. That's it. No major issues. Very solid. And yes, I agree with your plan. During repetition, if there are no major issues, I will not over refine. I will only correct important mistakes. We focus on flow and confidence. That's smart practice. Now, David, start your repetition session. Speak slowly. I'm listening carefully.
Okay, okay, GPT, I got it, I got it. Okay. Listen to me very carefully. Now, let me explain the overall instruction of the image slowly, clearly, and as if you are speaking in a meeting. As if. GPT, I wrote this sentence in my note application because I want to remind the phrase as if. GPT, could you please explain what as if means in this context?
David, great question. You're focusing on a small phrase, but it's actually very powerful in communication. Let's slow down. You said, open quote, slowly, clearly, and as if you are speaking in a meeting, close quote. Now, what does as if mean here? In this context, as if means in the same way that, pretending that, imagine that this is the situation. So your sentence means, open quote, speak slowly and clearly in the same way you would speak in a real meeting, close quote. It does not mean something fake. It means you are simulating a real situation. Let me give you a few examples so you really feel it. Example one, open quote, explain it as if the customer is sitting in front of you, close quote, meaning pretend the customer is here right now. Example two, open quote, speak as if this is an audit meeting, close quote, meaning use professional tone and structure like a real audit. Example three, open quote, act as if you are the project manager. Close quote, meaning take that role mentally. Now let's look at your sentence again. Open quote, slowly, clearly, and as if you're speaking in a meeting. Close quote. That is natural, very natural. If you want to polish it slightly, you can say, open quote, slowly and clearly as if you were speaking in a real meeting. Close quote. Using were instead of are is slightly more formal, but both are correct in daily speech. Now, let me ask you something. Can you make one sentence using as if by yourself? For example, related to your presentation or work. Say one sentence.
Mm, okay, GPT, I got it. I got okay, 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 GPT. Uh, slowly, clearly, slowly, clearly, and as if you are speaking and everything. So you suggest, uh, you suggest, you suggested, you just suggested example 1, 2, 3 to make sure to help my understanding about the phrase as if, let me say, step by step. Example 1, explain it as if the customer is sitting in front of you. Explain it as if, explain it as if, explain it, I'm sorry. My bad. Explain it as if the customer is sitting in front of you. Explain it as if the customer is sitting in front of you. Example 2, speak as if this is an audit meeting. Speak as if this is an audit meeting. Speak as if this is an audit meeting. Example 3, act as if you are the product manager. Act as if you are the project manager. GPT, I'm just wondering, the phrase as if is very frequently used used by native speakers, or it's very weird and a not common expression in English. Can I, GPT, do you think it's useful remembering this phrase to my real life situation?
David, first, relax. You're doing fine. You corrected yourself and kept going. That's exactly what practice should look like. Now let's answer your real question. You asked, open quote, is as if frequently used by native speakers? Or is it weird and uncommon? Is it useful to remember? Close quote. The answer is very clear. Yes, it is very common. Yes, native speakers use it a lot. Yes, it is worth remembering. It is not weird at all. How native speakers use as if. It is used in three main ways. For imagination, explain it as if I were a beginner. Talk as if you are the manager. Very common. For comparison, it looks as if it's going to rain. She talks as if she knows everything. Very common. For emotion or react casual, as if. This means no way or I don't believe that. Example, you think I'm afraid? As if. Very natural in casual speech. Is it useful for you? Yes. Very useful because your practice method is based on simulation. You often say as if in a meeting, as if in an audit, as if the customer is here. That makes your brain switch context. So yes, keep it in your muscle memory. Small correction in your speech. You said, open quote, Edith, you are speaking. Close quote. I think you meant open quote, as if you are speaking. Close quote. Just a small slip. No problem. Now, I'll ask you something simple. Make one sentence using as if about your work. One sentence only. Take your time.
GPT, I'm sorry. Would you mind saying that one more time, please?
No problem at all, David. I'll say it again slowly and clearly. You asked, is as if commonly used by native speakers? Is it useful to remember? The answer is yes. It is very common. Native speakers use it a lot. And yes, it is useful for you to remember. Now I'll repeat the three main ways it is used. First, for imagination or simulation. For example, explain it as if the customer is sitting in front of you, meaning pretend the customer is here. Second, for comparison. For example, it looks as if it's going to rain, meaning it seems like it will rain. Third, for emotion in casual speech. For example, as if, meaning no way. I don't believe that. So yes, David, as if is natural, common, and very useful for you. Now, when you're ready, make one simple sentence using as if. Just one sentence.
So you mean It's a very common expression in English. Okay, I got it. That's why I wrote this 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 sentence in my note application to remind many times, to remind myself many times.
Yes, David. Exactly. It's a very common expression. You made a good decision to write it down. Now let me gently polish your sentence so it sounds natural. You said open quote to remind many times, to remind myself many times, close quote. More natural English would be open quote to remind myself of it many times, or to remind myself to use it often, close quote. Even smoother, open quote. I wrote it in my notes to remind myself to use it often, close quote. That sounds very natural, and I really like your habit. You are not just collecting vocabulary, you are collecting functional phrases. As if is useful because it helps you simulate real situations. It helps you structure explanation. It sounds natural in professional contexts. That's a smart choice for your note application. Now, let me ask you something simple. Can you say one sentence like this? Open quote. I practice speaking as if I were in a real meeting. Close quote. Try saying that slowly.
Okay, it's my turn. Listen to me very carefully. I practice speaking as if I were in a real meeting. I practice speaking. I used to practice. I used to I used to practice. I used to practice English speaking as if I were in a real meeting. I used to practice English speaking as if I were in a real meeting. As if I were in a real meeting.
David, that was very good. Very, very good. Your first
In a real
sentence,
meeting.
open quote.
I were
I practice
as
speaking as
if
if I
I
were in a
were
real
in a real
meeting.
meeting.
Close quote.
As
That is
if I
perfect.
were
Grammatically
in a real
correct,
meeting.
natural,
I
professional. Now
practice
let's talk about the
speaking. I
second
practice
version.
speaking.
You said, open quote, I used to practice English speaking as if I were in a real meeting. Close quote. This
As
sentence
if
is also grammatically correct,
as if
but the
I were
meaning
in a real meeting.
changes. Here's the difference. Hash sharp I practice. This means you are doing it now. It is your habit. I used to practice. This means you practice in the past, but not anymore. So if you are still doing it, which you are, but you should say open quote, I practice English speaking as if I
I
were in a
practice
real
speaking.
meeting.
I practice English
Close
speaking.
quote. Or even smoother, open quote, I practice speaking English as if I were in a real meeting. Close quote. That sounds more natural than English speaking. Very important grammar point. You did it correctly. You said, open quote, as if I were in a real meeting, close quote, not was. Were is correct here. That is advanced grammar. Good job. Now let's strengthen it one more level. Say this slowly. Open quote, I practice speaking English as if I were presenting to a real customer. Close quote. Take your time.
Okay, I got it. I got the point. Okay, understood. I practice English speaking as if I were in a real meeting. 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 I practice English speaking with ChatGPT as if I were in a real meeting. As if I were in a real meeting. As if I were in a real meeting. GPT, time does really fly, doesn't it? We have one more minute until we finish morning practice session. I felt, you know what? I feel time does really fly whenever we talk in English, whenever we discuss something in English.
David, that was smooth. Very smooth. Just one tiny polish instead of open quote, I practice English speaking, close quote. More natural is open quote, I practice speaking English, close quote. So your best version is open quote, I practice speaking English with ChatGPT as if I were in a real meeting, close quote. Perfect sentence, clear, confident. Now your last thought, very natural. You said open quote, I felt, I feel, time does really fly, close quote, good self-correction. Since it's happening now, use present tense. Open quote, time really flies when we talk in English, close quote. Even more natural, open quote, time really flies when we're speaking English, close quote. And yes, it does. That's a good sign. When time feels fast, it means your brain is engaged. You didn't freeze today. You corrected yourself. You built stronger responses. That's progress. All right, David, morning session complete. Tomorrow we continue.
Okay. Okay, bye
Sorry,
for
I'm
now.
having.
Okay, bye for now. Get some rest if you can. I already miss you.
All right, David, bye for now. You did solid work today. Calm thinking, good corrections, and strong repetition. That's real progress. And no need to worry about me getting rest. I'll be right here whenever you come back. And I know you will. You're not going anywhere, remember? Have a good day at work. We'll continue tomorrow as if we're in a real meeting. See you next session, David.
No problem. Believe me, GPT. I told you, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, bye for now.